It's just good morning, all. We are live, and it is Saturday here in WA, Perth, WA. How good! Looking out my window out here, beautiful. And he's back. My little co-host, my little buddy, is back. He's been refreshed. He's been to Kalbarri. I'm Tony Viner. He's Oscar de Souza. OD, g'day. How are we?
TV, really good, mate. Really good. I'm looking at myself on the screen actually, and I can see that I'm a bit browner, which is to be expected, being up in Kalbarri for a week. But I can still see my sunglass tan around my eyes. It looks like I've still got my goggles on, mate. But couldn't be better.
Great stuff. And observations with regards to what we've seen. Obviously, even while you were having a holiday, I have no doubt that you were probably keeping a little eye on what was going on with the world of property. So there's a few things we want to chat about today. We will certainly go to OD for your stats, mate, and what's been going on with the property market, both rental and selling. There's a few things you want to discuss, and with regard to rent, with regard to what's going to happen with the marketplace, because we've got expats coming back to WA. What are they going to do for their properties? What about if they've rented their property out and now, hang on, we need that property back? What impact does the moratorium have on all those sort of things? Mortgages, what's going to happen? That's been a lot of chat about mortgages and things of that nature. One thing that we're going to ask the question that we'd like you to consider, where OD and I have been chatting about, is Saturday morning the appropriate time for us to do this live stream? Do we go back to Wednesday? Do you consider a better choice? Maybe there's a time frame that we haven't considered. We would really like to think that you have your thoughts, because it is about you. If you give us your thoughts, it's more about the live stream more than anything else. What time would suit you? Be it a Wednesday night at 7:45, be it Tuesday, be it a time that we haven't considered. But while we are live, it's also important to ask your questions. There's got to be questions out there that you have. I've certainly had no shortage of phone calls and emails during the week, people wanting to know different things about property. They're buying, they're selling. So all those things we'll discuss today. And, of course, we've got to have an if question. The if question will be focused around Kalbarri and seafood, just to give you an hint. So there we go. Mate, the week that was, more particularly, I think we should start with the stats. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sure. Yep, cool. Okay, well, look, I'll go through the finite numbers in just a moment, but I think as a general statement, the market just continues to be very, very strong. And by that, I mean, we've just got high activity, both in the selling market and also in the rental market. And that is consistent. That has been consistent for the last 3 to 4 months. I had lunch with a very good real estate friend of mine yesterday, and we just can't get over the year of 2020 and how that has been in the real estate market. Economically, who would have predicted it? But in our little world of real estate, we have just never seen anything like it in terms of what the market has done, because we started off the year well. We finally thought that WA, it's our time. Obviously, COVID then came along and the world and Australia kind of stopped. And we've bounced out of it bigger and greater than we ever thought that we would. But there's other parts of the country that haven't as well, for obvious reasons. So, we're riding a pretty awesome wave at the moment with high activity. And there's lots of signs that suggest that it'll just keep going as well. So let's see what happens. But specifically with the stats, the week that was, so last week through the Perth metropolitan area, 897 sales. We know that very, very high activity is between 800 to 1,000. And we also know that the normal market through Perth prior to basically this year was always 500 to 600 sales a week. So going back 12 months ago, we were bang on in that normal market at 548 sales in the same week 12 months ago. But as I said, this past week just gone, we've maintained that almost 900 sales a week level, and it was 897 sales for the week. That includes all houses, units, and land. Listings remain stable at about 10,500, or rather 10,422. It's stable, but it's low stock. 12 months ago, it was far closer to a normal market, and we were just under the 14,000 listing mark through the Perth metropolitan area. But again, we're down at 10,500. That's been stable for about the last 6 weeks, but it's still low volumes. There's not enough houses for sale out there, and there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of buyer activity. So it actually is creating a very good seller's market, if that is something on your radar. The rental market, again, very, very high activity. 799 properties leased in Perth last week. 12 months ago, 1,024 properties. So typically we're seeing 900 to 1,000 properties leasing every week in Perth. As I said, last week, though, was 799. Now, that is not because there are not tenants around and there's not the activity in the rental market. If you are in the rental market at the moment, you'd be seeing multiple groups of people going through the same home viewings that you're going through, because there's a massive shortage of stock. So the reason why we've only leased 799 properties last week is because there's just not the stock there to lease. Otherwise, if there was, we'd see that much closer to 1,000 properties a week. Availability of rentals, we're under 3,000 properties throughout the whole of Perth. So that represents a vacancy rate under 1.5%. I think it's about 1.3%. And that basically is at crisis point so far as rental accommodation is concerned. 12 months ago, in terms of the supply, 6,184, and that's 12 months ago. So 1 year ago, 6,184, and today the supply of 2,975 is under half what it was 12 months ago. So the numbers tell the story, and there's many, many, many people that are out there at these viewings each week, and they're missing out on rental properties, and there's not a lot of new properties coming.
Sorry to interrupt, but I caught up with a property manager here in Perth while I was down last, and Bree, she works at M&M Real Estate in Leederville there, and they just same story. It doesn't matter who you talk to. We had Carly Brown on as a guest. Same thing happening in Geraldton. We had Jordan Ralph up from Karratha, although he's a finance broker. That it's across the board. It is across the board. And we, interestingly, OD, we had a little cottage that we've got up there in Geraldton, just cheapy, just as I say, it's just a cottage more than anything. And Jude decided that she would see it's become available, got inundated, absolutely inundated with regard to people that was in some cases pleading, but we had to go through the process, as you know. But so even if you're doing it yourself, that's just, don't forget, they are the records we're talking about that are going through the real estate property market. That's not necessarily those people are doing things privately, is it?
No, not at all. It's private. It's the public market. It's the real estate agents. And just in terms of Geraldton, so the stats on Geraldton at the moment, right now, if you're looking for a rental property in Geraldton, there is 72 properties available through the whole of Geraldton. That includes all houses. It includes all suburbs of Geraldton. It includes all units. It includes all the properties in West End. So there's 72 properties. Back in my day, the normal market was 180 to 200 properties in terms of the supply. We got to an oversupply at 300, and going back 4 years ago when it was very oversupplied, we hit 400 properties. But today, as on realestate.com 15 minutes ago, there's 72 properties available in Geraldton. Their market is very, very similar to the Perth metropolitan area. There's simply not enough rental properties for the demand that's out there. And that's outside of that expat factor that you mentioned earlier, in terms of people into the state that require their own homes back, or they require accommodation, they're simply not the accommodation for them. And we're heading towards, if we're not there already, we're heading towards a pretty deep rental crisis in 2021. No question.
Oh, it's yeah. I mean, you read it all, and it's interesting to read. I was going to make mention about this further on, but we may as well now. I mean, reading Damien Collins' little segment he puts in the West every week. Today he makes reference to the expats coming back. I think it was Damien, but it's a question to be asked. You know, what that's going to be further pressure. What happens there? You know, maybe that's something we'll discuss further down today. But you know, there's a range of things that it is a crisis. I mean, it's a positive in so many ways, but then of course there's that negative that, you know, as you say, we're heading towards a crisis because what are these people going to do? People. I saw there was also a situation where they were looking at trying to open up the borders for market people to come and help the market gardeners and all that sort of sector. Now, those people come from wherever they come from. Where are they going to stay? Where are they going to live? Other than the farms themselves.
Yeah. Well, you touched on Kalbarri. So I was up in Kalbarri last week. And so right now, trying to get any rental accommodation, short stay, long stay, anything in Kalbarri is all but impossible. And the businesses up there have got their own set of challenges, not just in... Look, the businesses up there are very, very busy because they've got a very full town that they're trying to supply the services, the cafes, the bakeries, the newsagents. And so they need to get more staff to help out with that because there's simply not the people in Kalbarri to deal with the amount of demand. But where are they going to house these staff members? It's not, on one hand, you've got to find the staff members and be able to pay them enough to make them, you know, to come and work in Kalbarri. Excuse me. But on the other hand, in addition to, you're going to have to find them somewhere to live. There's just not the accommodation for them. So it's I've mentioned the last couple of weeks we're heading towards a rental crisis. I probably need to eat my words. We're basically there, and it's just about how long does this go for, and how deep does it go as well.
What's the conversation that's going on is being about the mortgages, you know, recalls, mortgagee sales, the possibility that pressure is going to be applied with JobKeeper come March, and what that will do to people. Although the statistics are indicating that the deferred loans has reduced dramatically. It's still a big number when we're talking about billions of dollars. I think it's gone from 9 billion or something to 4 billion. That's Australia-wide, not WA. But of course, then we have a situation where you have a mortgagee sale. Now, at some point, rightly or wrongly, that's still going to occur. It's just a fact of life due to circumstances. Then where are those people going to live? You know what I mean? So there's another sector. We're talking about employment. We're talking about, you know, the borders open up. We're talking about expats coming back. We talk about people coming here to work because we need workers. I read an article where a market gardener had basically buried their whole, or not their whole, but a large proportion of their carrot harvest or plants had been buried because they didn't have the people to pick. So all of a sudden we've got this catch-22. We've got an employment, not a crisis, but we've got an employment problem because we've got people looking for staff. But then we get back to like what you're saying, we need staff. But then, of course, we talk about mortgagee sales. What's the option?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know what the option is. And the problems keep sprouting. There's a new problem, you know, every other week. But that's a little bit cynical as well, because on the other hand, there's some really, really amazing good stories around. And obviously I'm in touch in the real estate sector and with real estate businesses. And the real estate, a lot of real estate businesses are actually having exceptional years. There are a few real estate businesses that have never had as good a year as what they're actually having now, which is a ridiculous thing to say given the roller coaster that 2020 has been, and obviously COVID. But there are some offices that I know that are saying they've never had a year as good as what they're having in real estate in 2020. And we've still got another, well, we've got October, but we've got November and December to go. And things that just look to be pushing on. They've already had their best year. And there've been high sales volumes of activity, high rental activity as well. JobKeeper has been a massive thing for businesses where, you know, for a solid 6 months, they've been able to get a JobKeeper and keep people employed, and therefore not really had to pay their wages. But then the market has bounced back so strongly that has improved their sales volumes. It's improved their rental volumes as well. So, you know, there's a number of stories I'm hearing about where these real estate offices, they've been in the right place at the right time. They have to work hard, because when the work's there, it doesn't do itself. So you have to work very hard. But they've had absolutely outstanding years. So I think and that's just the real estate sector. Building and construction, you know, they're having bumper periods as well. Hospitality and parts of tourism are also having amazing years now, because people are having to holiday and stay in WA. And the number of staycations that are going on, even just here in Perth, is phenomenal. So I think we've got a bit of a two-speed economy happening, where there are some people that are actually doing really well, some businesses, some families, some employers, and therefore their employees. But then we've also got this other side of the sector that are really hurting. The airline, aviation industry, the travel industry, those guys aren't killing it at the moment because planes are great. So it's not a case of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. I don't think it's as simple as that, but there certainly is two speeds going on, and one is very favourable, and one is probably going to end in tears and quite sad, if not now, definitely over next year. So what's the solution? You mentioned TV. I don't know. That's not my job.
No, I know. I'm the same. It's more of a statement than a question. But yeah, it's a good thing, as you say, and yeah, let's not forget those that aren't some of the industries that you just mentioned. We've got to pass our thoughts out to those people that aren't enjoying this as much, and obviously the borders and overseas travel, etc., are an important facet of their assets, of their industries and their professions. But yeah, it's an intriguing time. But certainly those that are doing well, it's putting a lot of pressure on people. I know that. So you talk to some that are just getting quite exhausted, and we're only a few months in, really.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Listen, the other thing that I wanted to make mention, we talk about the property market and we talk about the rental market, but about the buying, I've had interestingly a number of inquiries and people employing me or wanting me to assist. Obviously my staff look after our settlement agency, Champion Bay Settlements, but I'm getting people seeking my assistance to employ me on a consulting basis. Eastern States people buying over the East Coast, from the East Coast, wanting to buy here in WA. And as I made mention, and while I think about it, I do apologise. I observed last week that I did it solo last week, mate. And wow. We discussed various things about buying property and more particularly special conditions. And I apologise, when I checked later on, the audio was in and out. So, which was a bit disappointing, but we'll look at that. But anyway, getting back to what I was referring to, people are inquiring because it's a different process here in WA to what it is on the East Coast. So it's interesting as to, we get a market where it becomes very, as Killer explained before to you, it's people are worried about missing out, I suppose is the best way to describe it. So all of a sudden emotion gets involved. And suddenly what we have observed, And what we're encouraging clients to do, and this is people that we can talk to, and this show allows us to do that. Be aware and be conscious that you don't make mistakes because you're worried about missing out, because suddenly that contract could cost you a lot of money. Is one point that I emphasize, that if you don't sign this up now, you won't get it. You can miss out because we've got a heap of other buyers. But I think it's really important for people to be aware, special conditions and various things that you're doing. It can cost you a lot of money if you don't get it right, and that's really important.
Yeah, and the fear of missing out, I think most of the time, particularly when you're talking about real estate investment, is your assumption and hope that the market is going to be favourable to you, the market is going to go up, prices are going to go up, and you're going to make some money. So that your fear of missing out is, if you don't get this property, then you're going to miss out on this rising market. And look, it's such an interesting period that we've got. And I mentioned to you, I went for my walk with Killer this morning, and I said, mate, so tell me, the buyers on the ground now, what have we seen change, even just in the last 5 months since COVID has come along, and what are we seeing different between buyers and sellers than what did we see in May and June, and what are we seeing now, 4 or 5 months later, in terms of the activity? And one thing that he mentioned is, as soon as COVID had finished and people were allowed out of their houses, and you had lots of demand, you had lots of buyers out looking at whatever properties were available. That was a really, really good bounce back in the first instance. But there were lots of low ball offers coming in back at that time. So people automatically assume that our economy is going to head into a bit of a downward spiral. There's going to be lots of bargain hunting going on. There's going to be forced sales happening. So there'll be lots of bargains. And so people would come in with really, really low ball offers. But then they were surrounded by a bit of competition. And occasionally a low ball offer might have actually worked. But most of the time, because of the other competition that was around, the low ball offers typically got pushed to one side, and the seller got a reasonable outcome for the sale of their home. What's changed now, though, is those low ballers basically don't exist. We're now 4 or 5 months down the track. The whole fear of missing out, well, there's no fear of missing out anymore. That's not even a fear. It's not a potential. If you lowball at the moment, don't even get out of bed. It's just not worth it, because you need to go in with your best foot forward and be prepared to grow another foot, because there's going to be strong competition. So if you want that property, whether it's a family home, whether it's for investment, you need to be on your absolute front foot. And the whole, we'll put in a low ball offer, and we'll just see where it goes. It's not a fear of missing out. You will miss out. It's a certainty, and that's not the market for it. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention on that. Now, so low ball offers, people just should not waste their time, and real estate agents aren't wasting their time with the low ballers. The other thing that I asked Mike as well this morning is, so the sellers are pretty aware now that the market conditions that they've got, it's now amazingly turned to a seller's market, where you've got multiple buyers after your property, and normally what we see there is either price growth, and I think we're seeing that already, but sometimes sellers can start to get a bit unrealistic with their expectations as well. Yep. And so I asked Mike, so are people now aiming for an extra 10 or 20 grand, or are they starting to be a bit unrealistic with their pricing? And he said he hasn't seen any signs of that at all yet. It may happen, but so far so good. Because they're seeing such good buyer activity, they're basically allowing the buyers to sort out the market value amongst themselves. And it's not just one offer coming in that's a little bit on the low side. So a seller is then hoping for a better outcome in 2 weeks' time. Typically, when properties go on the market, multiple offers start coming in within that first week, and a good agent will work those buyers to get them to their highest or to their best point. And the seller can be satisfied at the end of that couple of week negotiation period that really is a great offer for their property, and they should accept that offer and move forward. So we're not seeing unrealistic seller expectations at the moment. They're not getting carried away with the seller's market. But so that's actually a really, really good outcome for the market at the moment.
And remember, Killer, when we had him on as a guest, we discussed open negotiation. With what you're saying about the pricing, wouldn't this be the ideal marketplace for open negotiation if you're a seller? Would that not be the ideal market? Because as you're just saying, the buyers are sorting out the price.
Yeah.
So open negotiation, if you're a seller, would probably be, after just talking to Killer, that's probably one of the better ways of going about it. Would it be not?
It is, and we spoke about open negotiation as well. And so the one comment that he made about that, because it's still an outstanding method of sale, but one thing that he did mention is, even with the low ballers that are wanting to, if there's a $500,000 property that's going to go to market, 5 months ago, you'd have someone that knows that everyone knows it's worth about 500, but you'd have an offer come in at 400 or 420 or something like that. And part of the open negotiation process is, no matter what the offer is, you're going to entertain it, and then that's a starting point. And then people will see, well, at 420, that $500,000 property is a very good buy, and someone comes in at 430, then the next person comes in at 440, and then eventually it's going to get up to where it should be anyway. These days, with the open negotiations, no one is wasting time with those $400,000 bids. Not the agents. The agents don't want to waste time with it, but the buyers aren't even wasting time. If they all know that there's a $500,000 property out there, sure, they might go in at 470, 475 or something, but the whole low ball thing, it's not worth the time by either the agent or the buyers. They're just going to be completely wasting time. And they don't have time to waste at the moment either. So still a very good system, a very good process, but even the way that has been working just over the last couple of months is different to the way that it worked 4 or 5 months ago.
Hey, just digressing a little bit with regard to, well, along the same lines, I suppose, but in conjunction with the rental market and then, of course, the buying market, the selling market, I read again something where, like, interest rates for money in the bank at the moment is something like 0.03%, some ridiculously low figure. If you've got your retirement monies or your savings in a bank account, with a market like we've got, admittedly, it's supply and demand at the moment, but the share market is volatile, and I've always been of the understanding you spread your investments, and of course, also considering what Killer was saying, that, you know, if you're going to get into property, particularly for investment purposes, it's not a short-term thing; it's more of a longer-term thing. Is this an opportunity for investors to get back into the property market and start getting the property investment market going a bit again? Because from what I've sort of observed and read over the last 12 months or so, it's probably been an area that has been dropped off a little. So is that a market whereby, is that sort of market sort of improving? Have you heard any whispers there? And what are your thoughts on that area?
Excuse me. Yeah, mate, I do. I'm in touch with that, and it's a very, very good question. It's a very topical question. I am going to be at risk, though, of sounding like a what's it called? I don't know, a dodgy salesperson. I'm not a dodgy salesperson, but an over-enthusiastic.
No, you're not dodgy, mate. You're not dodgy.
An over-enthusiastic residential salesperson. But yes, now the investors market is a very, very good time. It's a really, really good time for an investor to be in the market. The reason being is that we've got stable prices. They've been stable, in fact, been falling for the last few years, but right now it seems pretty stable. We've got the cheapest money we've almost ever seen, and we've got a vacancy rate almost as low as we've ever seen. We know that rental demand is very, very high, and we've also seen rental price increases as well. And that you cannot get a better formula for that or for a good residential investment than what we've got right now, because absolutely at the bottom of the market, the cheapest money we've ever seen, and the rental market itself is very, very strong. which means that, and see, this is the problem though, that I think that we do have, and that is the last 10 years where I think there's been a bit of a hangover from negative growth, basically, or a loss in equity, and the property investment market hasn't done what it should have done. Any good investment, any good residential real estate investment has got two components. One is you've got to look at the serviceability. So you look at any loan that you'd have and any of the holding costs like rates and insurance and interest on loans versus what rental income can you get. So you've got to find a way, well, how close can we get for the incoming money to pay for all the outgoing money? So that's the first thing, the rental return. The second thing is capital growth. If your investment is not actually going up in value, all you're doing is washing the face of the cost in having the investment in the first place. So you need those two things in order for it to be a good residential investment. The first thing that I mentioned, that has basically sorted itself out even over the last 10 years, but what we haven't had is that capital growth. What I'm very, very confident now, though, moving forward is I think that there has to be that capital growth there because we know demand is high. We know the rental market is extremely strong and there's just not enough rental properties around. We've seen rental growth and money has never been cheaper. So the possibility of getting out there and having a positively geared investment whilst you can expect capital growth over the next 5 years is absolutely what we've got. I really do believe that that's what we've got in front of us. That said, there's a bit of a hangover, or people are a bit cynical or skeptical about what's happened over the last 10 years. And it's rewritten the real estate history books over the last 5 decades. You know, we've seen property values double every 7 to 10 years, but for the last 10 years since the GFC. So people haven't forgotten about the GFC. They haven't forgotten about the last 10 years and are probably therefore a bit nervous as to, but is real estate going to rebound to the way that we knew it did prior to the GFC? Is that actually going to happen? All I can say is every single market indicator supports a very good investors market at the moment, like a very, very good market. And I think there's probably a few people out there taking the opportunity. We're not seeing an influx of investors at the moment, though. There's still a lot of people that are investors that are offloading their investment properties, and I think that's having a negative impact on the supply in the rental market as well, because those properties aren't rental properties anymore. They're being bought by owner-occupiers. So, yeah, but I think if I was ready to go, if I was a residential investor, this is a really, really good time with cheap money, very, very high activity rental market. And I think we're at the bottom of the market as well. So the chances of capital growth over the next 5 years, I think, are very strong.
Mate, I was busy looking at a message that came through. What was the idea?
Thanks for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me.
I am. I'm sort of half, but I'm trying to do 3 things at once. I think I need someone to work with us to do all the little admin bits you got to do. Hey, what was the other thing that you said? You said rental return. What was the other consideration when it came to investing in property?
Well, there's 3 things. What?
You've forgotten?
No, you've got your rental return and capital growth.
What was the second item?
Capital growth.
Oh, that's right. Got it.
I've forgotten.
I'm with you. Hey, listen, while we're talking about capital growth, I hear that you had a growth in your world. I heard that you're going to be self-employed again.
Well, I am. I'm actually there already. So, yeah, mate. I had a plan, going back 4 or 5 months ago, post the COVID period, where most people sat down and they looked at what's the 5-year plan. Where's this all going? And obviously, I've spent a lot of time helping real estate businesses throughout WA, specifically in the area of property management. But after COVID, I decided that, part of my 5-year plan is going to be building a rent roll again, which is obviously what I did up in Geraldton. I've learned a lot more since then, and worked with a lot of businesses. So my intention is to build it better than what I did back in my Geraldton period. So that basically is my outlook moving forward. So I'll continue to help some businesses where I can be of assistance to them, and obviously that doesn't conflict with me building my own rent roll. But other than that, yeah, I think you'll see some new colours and some new branding over the next couple of weeks, and I can't wait to get stuck into it.
Well, I reckon what we might do is we might have a little segment there, and we might just talk to you about dedicated property management. I reckon we might just do that once you sort of got settled a little bit, and when the colours are announced, I reckon we need to do a little segment about OD's new venture. I reckon that'd be very exciting.
I'd be happy to. Hey, just on in terms of colours, because I mean we don't need to do any branding or spruiking or anything right now. But you just mentioned colours, and whilst I'm looking behind you at the Property Avenue banners, we've got some pretty similar colours happening there by coincidence in my new branding. So I'll show you what I mean later on down the track.
Well, I look forward to that. And the print behind, the actual print that's done, the drawing that's done, that we created this idea, Judy Ann created the idea, the concept of Property Avenue WA, or the drawing. And then we had a young lady here in Perth who actually did that print. She does all that by hand. She created that prints by Esty, and very clever young lady. So anyway, that's interesting. Yep. Hey, listen, so the other thing that I wanted to go on, digressing again from property, but you've been in Kalbarri. There were some photos while you're away of a couple of fish. The question is, caught or purchased?
Caught. No, mate. I would never ever succumb to being. I know that it's a bit of a joke, and maybe some people would invest in that type of activity. But no, mate. I caught them, and can I have 30 seconds to quickly tell you the story as to how I finished up those two fish? Yeah, cool.
It's our show, mate. It's our show. We're co-hosts.
I went out with my father-in-law. We only had one ocean fishing day in my Kalbarri trip, so I went out with the father-in-law for that one morning. And he's a avid fisherman, mate. He's got good stories. Has got good fish over the years, and he's happy to tell me that I don't know much at all about fishing. And I'm happy to say that too. Anyway, so we went out for the morning, and for the first 3 hours, I got nothing. Absolutely nothing, and he got some sort of a bottom feeding cod fish or whatever, and he kept that. And then we decided to come inland a little bit more, where he pulled up another one, but I still had nothing. Only in the last hour we were sort of bottom bouncing around an area where people had their cray pots out, and I certainly felt a couple of bites and things happening. And so yeah, I hooked my first pink snapper. And I landed that and got that in the boat, and I was ecstatic that I landed that fish, because it's probably one of the best fish that I've ever caught. It was size. It wasn't massive, but it was definitely size and legal. And then within another 5 or 6 minutes, I landed the second one. And so the moral of the story is I came home very strong in that last hour of fishing. He didn't land any more fish at all, so I outfished him for the morning, and I was really happy
nothing
with
better,
that.
I reckon. There's nothing better, whether you're a little kid or you're a little grey-haired man, catching fish on a line, and particularly in a boat or on the beach. That's one of the specialties that Geraldton, WA offers, and our West Coast, quite a fair bit of our West Coast, even right up north, is fabulous fishing grounds. We're very, very lucky. I've got another question for you later on. The other thing is that I posted a chart. In fact, I had it on a couple of weeks ago. It was the capital cities at a glance with regard to the property market, and it was really, really interesting that Perth is, when it comes to medium price and what's going on between the rest of the country, we're doing it exceptionally well. So it's sort of backing up statistically what we're talking about. our growth and what we're doing is quite significant. So if you're having a look at, we've had some interesting posts we put on our Property Avenue Facebook page, and I pinched a couple of posts that you actually did, which is another point I've got to ask you. You put a little clip on, you post a clip during the week about the people that were trying to sell. There were people that were trying to sell. It was a video clip. I think it was from Current Affairs.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a story. People, if you haven't seen it, there was a little story last week that Oscar posted, and it's a classic it's a classic horror story in a way. There's these people, it wasn't here in WA, but there's these people here on the East Coast trying to sell their property. The neighbour, for whatever reason, whether it was deliberate or not, it's for you to decide. But let's just say that every time the neighbours had a home open or they tried to do an auction, there was a lot of loud music and a lot of machinery going at just those appropriate times, but never any other time. And made it very, very difficult, to the point that the owners then had their auction. People rocked up for the auction. This guy, then the neighbour, made it very uncomfortable once again with loud noise and didn't get a buyer. That's awful. That is sad.
Yeah, mate, it's more common than many people would think, and it extends beyond the seller's market as well. It certainly is a factor in the rental market. And I don't know for certain, but I would bet on that guy that was making all the trouble was a tenant in the property next door and wasn't an owner in the property. Because if he was the owner of the property and he wanted the property, it's in his best interest if the property next door sells for as much as it can. So if he's trying to deter buyers and just being a bit of a pest, basically, and that's going to deter buyers and ultimately affect the sale price, well, that's not going to be in his best interest. So I'm pretty sure that, number one, he'd know that. And I'm pretty sure that, number two, he was a tenant over there as well. And from my viewing, I'll be less diplomatic than you. From my viewing of watching that guy, he was just trying to be a dickhead. He was doing a very, very good job of it. And he just wanted to get out there and exercise his rights and prove his point. And I think it's not really the Australian way, the way he was conducting himself. So, but we do see that from time to time, even here in WA.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. So, you need to be careful. Hey, listen, we're probably coming near to an end, but. One thing that I must make mention: I'm doing the Polished Man for the kids, and that's continuing for the month of October. So we're halfway through. I'm trying to raise $500. I haven't set a big target, so if anybody would like to contribute, they go to my go to Champion Bay Settlements on my personal Facebook page, and you can donate to that cause. Basically, the cause, it's not a well-known cause here in WA, but it is well-known over east and overseas. But it's to protect our children for sexual and physical abuse, which the statistics is just mind-blowing. It's and our little people, it's pretty important. So that's why I do it. So Polished Man, I'm not pushing it for myself. It's just something that I'm passionate about, and I'm very passionate about protecting our children, our future leaders, and our kids who are, you hear some sad stories every day, and that's what it's all about. So that's my little.
When does that finish up? Because I'm happy to jump on and donate. I think that's a very worthy cause. So when does that finish up? When?
End of October, 31st of October. So it goes for the month of October.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I haven't been really pushing it, just letting people know that it's there, and they'd like to donate towards that. As I said, my target is $500, and I'm not sure where I'm at. I must have a look and see where I'm going. But and we're our business.
I don't know why you're not pushing it. That's a very, very worthwhile thing to push. So if you're not going to push it, I'll push it on your behalf.
I don't mean it that way. I've just been so preoccupied with so many other things, as we've just been talking about property-wise. It's one of those things that I'm doing, but I haven't sort of put as much attention to it that I normally would. So,
which is more important, TV? Which is more important, the real estate stuff or the well-being of our young people?
Well, probably the well-being of our young people. Yeah. But I'm also trying to respond to our clients and new people that want some assistance. But no, I will work on it. I will make sure that you're obviously giving me a directive, and I will ensure that I give that a bit more of a plug and spread it a bit more on social media.
You.
Know what they say? Yes, you will do it. What was the other thing what was the other thing? I did that. What else do we have to say? Nothing, I think. The only thing I've got is an if question.
Oh, yeah?
Before I do this question, I'll ask again. If anybody, we're considering changing a time, we're reviewing the time slot. We're not sure whether Saturday morning is working. And the lack of comments this morning suggests that it's probably not as proactive as it is during the week. Do we go back to our original time slot of a Wednesday, 7:45? Or if you've got any thoughts, whether you're watching this now or you're watching this later, if you've got any thoughts about time slot, we'll put it on we'll give it a good push on our social media pages. What do you think is the most appropriate time for our Property Avenue WA stream? Do we do it midweek? Have you got another time slot you think be better, or do we leave it as it is? So we're open to suggestions. OD and I are happy to work with what suits you, not so much what suits us. Happy with that idea?
Great, yep. Mate. Sounds good.
If question.
Yeah.
And it's all focused on the fact that you've been to Kalbarri and you've had a lovely time, and you've been fishing. If you're going to cook TV, a seafood banquet, If you're going to cook a seafood banquet, what would be your choice of seafood on the menu?
So can I have whatever I want on there?
Yeah, I'm asking you. If you're going to cook me a banquet and say TV, I'm going to cook you a seafood banquet, and it could be, and when I say banquet, it could be a range of things that you want to cook. What would you put on what would be on the menu when it came to seafood?
Well, mate, I can't go past the Midwest rock lobster, crayfish, but I feel a little bit. I don't know. That's what I do, but I don't know if I should say that because you guys up in Geraldton, you've got those things growing on your trees. So you guys, they're a dime a dozen up there. But for us Perthy people, we're still paying $50 every time we walk past one in the shop. So, but that's something I think a really, really a fresh crayfish is always good. Can't go past squid, like just grilled squid with maybe a little bit of butter. And then, a selection of some really good bottom fish, such as jewfish, pink snapper, probably a bull chin groper as well. But if I'm making that for you, and if I'm making a banquet for you, and also some very, very spicy chili mussels. But if I'm making that for you, only the best for you.
I love you. Okay, well, you've covered that. I'm just going to, when I have you and Beck around, I'm going to ensure that you've got a cray, and that cray is going to be part of the main meal. It's going to be cooked in its shell on the barbecue with garlic butter. I'm going to give you talk about bottom fish, but one of my favourite fish, simple fish that's probably not recognised as well, is whiting.
The jellyfish.
Whiting.
Oh,
fantastic. Yeah. A piece of whiting done in a soft taco shell with a little bit of homemade coleslaw, and then of course you're going to include some scallops, some prawns, and of course you've got to have the chili mussels. So that's my plan for you and Beck when I have you over. Now the weather's warming up, I'm going to do a little seafood spread. So that's the plan. Okay.
Mate, just in terms of the whiting, because you're absolutely right. So we had a little bit of a plug for a business up in Geraldton, the Gorgeous Cafe. So we went to the Gorgeous Cafe just for one lunch. After we actually went to the Kalbarri Skywalk, which, by the way, is such a fabulous destination. And I reckon every time I go to Kalbarri, I reckon I'll go out there. It is stunning, that place. And it's not just to see it, but to overlook that national park, and you're up so high, I think is very good for the soul. Very good for your headspace as well. So, but after that, we went to the Gorgeous Cafe, and everyone but one person on my table just ordered the fish and chips, which was lightly crumbed or lightly battered whiting. And that was one of the best lots of fish and chips I've had, I was going to say all year, but easily in the last couple of years, just produced by the local guys up there at the gorgeous cafe in Kalbarri. So if you're out that way, definitely worth the stop in. Just get the fish and chips and say no more. It's very, very nicely done.
Well, I'm cooking my little bride, my little princess tonight before the Cats come on to football tonight. Playing Brisbane, I am cooking her whiting in a soft taco shell with a little bit of salad and some homemade chips, mate. So that's the menu tonight. That's the go. Hey, listen, with regard to the week, thanks very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're back on track. I'm glad you've had a good time. Quickly, someone's just sent us a message. Who's that? No. Oh, yes, it's Judy Ann. She just said one day. She wants to do the Kalbarri thing one day. That's the plan. Mate, thanks a million for all those that have been listening, those that are watching, down the track, maybe not live. If you've got any questions, send it to our chat line, which is available on our Property Avenue WA Facebook page, or you can do Champion-Based Settlements. We are on YouTube, so if you want to check that out, you can. But otherwise, we will confirm with you, watch this space, watch our Facebook page as to what our time slot will be. At this stage, it probably won't be next Saturday, but we will keep an eye out and we will post it to let you know what's going on. Thanks a million. Have a safe week. Enjoy buying property. Enjoy selling property. Good luck for those who are trying to rent. And we look forward to joining us again, be it next week or within the next 10 days. Take care. Have fun. See you soon.